She's a type A personality, a go-getter in her career, stubborn and certain of herself. And a big part of you loves it and even admires that tenacity in her. But she needs to be soft with you and even craves so. Your wife doesn't want to be masculine. Now you may say, my wife is just this way. It's who she is since I've known her. No, that's who she's become. And if you think you cannot get her to open up and be feminine, then you have become weak and complacent, choosing to retreat or remain defeated. I know that may seem harsh, but you need to hear this. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you why a woman and your wife have developed a tough masculine core. It's not who they are. What you have done and not done to create that and amplify it. And 4 daily habits you can do to release her into her beautiful feminine essence, no matter how cold or stubborn she is. Now, my name is Josh Hudson. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist, and for the past decade, I've been helping men transform and reset their marriages by becoming the best versions of themselves using authentic masculinity. Now, let me start off by letting you off the hook, just 1%, okay? I usually don't do this, but I'm gonna tell you a very common story with one of the wives in our program, and I'm gonna see if it matches up with your wife's story to some degree. So David's wife grew up in a very Christian household, going to church every single weekend and very strict, all right? Now, because the parents were not too affluent, they had to work a lot, right? They're a working class family. Sometimes mom would send David's wife to the friend/neighbor's home. A few years go by, and she was about 7 at the time. Around 9 years old, 2 years has happened, where she had the courage to tell her parents that, well, he was abusing her, you know? When David's wife had the courage to come tell her parents what was happening, they didn't believe her, and they didn't take immediate action. They did, they swept it under the rug. They stopped sending her daughter over there, of course, but the damage was done and there was no repair. And so what did that teach David's wife? For most women, it's these 3 things when abuse happens and there's no response. David's wife learned these 3 lessons. 1, she couldn't rely on others to protect her. 2, vocalizing her needs means still not getting them met. And 3, there's something about her that's just not lovable. A sad statistic is that the World Health Organization reports 1 in 5 women report SA as a child. And that's just reporting. Most women say that, or most studies out there say that 1 in every 3 women experience some type of S abuse across the course of their life. Now, what this does, to let you off the hook, that 1%, is that, I worked with people all through different types of trauma, right? I worked with sex offenders. I worked with the other side of the aisle, by the way, which that's for a whole other story for a whole other video. When someone goes through abuse, man or woman, doesn't matter the type of abuse, even if it's neglect, we have to develop this tough exterior, defense mechanisms to keep us alive, because abuse essentially is telling your brain that you cannot survive. You cannot get your needs met in your environment with who you are and where you're at, so you must adapt and adopt and survive. And that's when defense mechanisms come to play. Also, with people with heavy trauma, that alarm bell tends to go off. It's a lot more sensitive than people without heavy abuse or any abuse for that matter. So what does this look like? Well, if you take the same exact situation, but one person has abuse and one person doesn't, let's say you didn't text back after you're out for a night, right? And your partner doesn't have any abuse patterns. What they'll do is they'll probably call you, be like, hey, what's going on? I haven't heard from you, and leave it like that. Someone with heavy abuse may either A, if they're avoidant, completely shut down, block you, and just not even talk to you and assume the worst, or blow up your phone 100,000 times saying like, where the heck are you? You're cheating on me, all these things, right? There's an intense reaction to trauma moving forward in life because of these early patterns that happened early in life. Now, this is where I'm gonna put you back on the hook. When a woman, your wife, for example, when she does feel safe in an environment, in a container where she can feel protected and provided for, she's not gonna have those triggers and those reactions. And over time, consistently, if you provide her with that safe space, she's gonna associate you with safety, and those triggers are gonna get less pronounced, and there's actually gonna be some healing going on. Let me give you an analogy that makes sense. Let's say your wife is water, okay? Now, over time with neglect, let's say what happens is that your wife's gonna get cold, because left alone in this cold environment, she's gonna freeze up, she's gonna get tense. But you are the sun. What does the sun do? It's all loving, it's all consciousness, it brings warmth and connection. And when you give her that love and connection, you don't neglect her, you don't yell at her, right? You make her feel safe. That ice just melts back into that warm energy giving, life providing water that fills you up and makes you feel refreshed, you see? So the question is, what is your role in softening her and bringing her back to her feminine? And how much influence do you actually have over her? Well, it all starts with understanding patterns. Now, I remember when I was with one of my ex-partners, we were traveling throughout Europe together. Now, the whole time I was traveling with her on this trip, she was treating me like I was an idiot. She was saying like, hey, we gotta be here at this time, okay? Make sure you pack all this stuff. Do you have the tickets? Do you have the tickets? And the whole time I was thinking to myself, I know I'm not stupid. At least I'm pretty sure, but like, where's this coming from? I don't understand why she's treating me like I'm dumb. And then halfway through the trip, we meet up with her parents. And the first thing I notice when I get into the airport, I see her mom and dad walking together. And guess what her mom's doing? They're walking and she's like, did you pack this? Make sure you pack that, right? We have to check at the hotel, 12, we have to be out there. I was like, holy crap. She is literally replicating unconsciously the same pattern she recognized from her parents. And the thing is that you and your wife are doing the same thing as you recognize with your parents, whether you are aware of it or not. Now you should be. You see, much like your wife experienced trauma and that influences the way she is, so have you, right? You have all these things that you've grown up with. Like for a lot of men, right, it was their angry father or absent father, right, that created an overdependence with their mother, and they needed that smothering love. And that's what they knew as love. So when their wife pulls away, they freak out, right? Or maybe the father said like, hey, you can't express certain emotions. So then when you can't express those emotions, your wife feels that disconnect from you, and that's what she's pushing away. Whatever the patterns are, you must identify them first, then you can overcome them. And that's what setting up a call with our marriage evaluation team can help with, is that you can tell us the history of your relationship. We could show you exactly what's going on and the things that you fail to do or are doing that have caused the marriage to be where it's at, and then you can correct them like that. So you can set up a call down below with our team if that sounds good to you and you want some awareness around those patterns. So what are the 4 masculine melting habits that you can do with her daily to start to make her soft and supple and feminine again? This first masculine habit is certainty. But first, before we dive into certainty and how to add that to your life and your wife for a better marriage, let's talk about what uncertainty does to her. Imagine your wife comes home and she had a very stressful day. Boss is an a-hole, quarterly meet, whatever. Maybe she's not feeling good in her body. It's that time of the month. Kids, stuff, you get the point, right? She comes home, she's stressed, but so are you. And then she asks you simply, hey, can you go make dinner? Or can you put on a load of laundry real quick? And you're like, oh yeah, let me just, go do this first, right? Or whatever. And you're kind of dismissive. She's already at that breaking point. And then the one person she wants you just to make her life a little bit easier, to make some decisions for her. So it's just not adding more stress. And then you don't come forward, right? You don't come through. And the worst part about all of this is that you have to recognize that making decisions, it burns calories, right? This is why CEOs are paid so much. Like making good, effective decisions, it's a caloric expenditure task, right? It burns energy. And so you're literally causing her to burn energy and go towards less life and more death. On a very deep level, you are making her life harder. Now, I know a lot of men, they say, well, like my wife just does it. Like she doesn't even ask anymore. She just kind of like, how am I supposed to? Yes, I get it, but she learned to do that. She still wants help. She wants you to take that lead and be decisive. Even, I know sometimes, look, even if she says something to you and she says, hey, what do you want to do here? What are these options? Hey, what do you like? Even if you have no opinion and you could really not give you don't care what the outcome is. I've been there. I get it. A lot of things you just don't want to bother with. Still make a decision. Still give your opinion. Okay? Say, hey, I prefer this. I think this is best, and this is the reason why. You are doing her such a favor. Okay? And this leads in actually to the second habit, which is leadership. Now, I want you to see decision as a reactive strategy to this mindset of stress that she's in, where leadership is a proactive strategy, or you're doing it ahead of time, okay? Now, to understand the concept of leadership and how to apply it practically to your life, let's actually talk about this concept called the drifter in the book Outwitting the Devil. I'll read a quote from Napoleon Hill. A drifter is one who has neither a major purpose in life nor a plan for attaining it. He does not have the self-confidence to master the circumstantial forces of life and refuses to do so. He permits himself to be dominated by me and my allies, non-achievers. He accepts all forms of temporary defeat as failure. He is easily influenced to change his mind. He begins many things but completes nothing. He lacks vision and imagination and has no definite goals in life. He has no enthusiasm, initiative, or self-discipline. Now that was a quote from the devil, as Napoleon Hill is discussing with him about these drifters and people who are non-drifters. Now, the devil in that book says that 98% of the population are drifters and only 2% are non-drifters. And we've all been a drifter at times, scrolling through social media, just going through the motions, not making decisions for yourself, choosing to take the easier route. But an apex man, a man that is on his purpose in life, a man that is his best self, the man that you were at one point in your life or another, you become a drifter, right? You've gotten to this echelon of life and you're like, I can settle now. But you cannot stop or settle. And she needs you to be that leader, to make the decisions, to be the man that God put you on this planet to be. You know that guy. I don't know who it is, but you do. And you know if you're settling and not being him. And so does she. And when she has to be masculine, she has to defend herself. And she has to put on these protection mechanisms because you aren't being that guy. So lead in the relationship. Now, how practically do you do this? Again, recognize ahead of time. Let's say we go back to that work scenario. Recognize maybe if you text her in the middle of the day to say, hey, how's it going? Or you called her and you could tell she's stressed out in her voice. You know what? I'm going to do something nice for my wife. I'm going to come home 10, 15 minutes early and I'm going to start cleaning things up. Or I'm going to take the kids here even though it's her time. Or I'm going to make dinner tonight for her. Just make it a little bit easier. Taking that proactive leadership is amazing. And it does so well to help reduce and melt that masculine core she has. The third masculine habit is to assert your boundaries. Now, when it comes to asserting your boundaries, there'll be a video at the very end of this on practical tips on how to do that. But what I'm going to talk to you about right now is how to identify your boundaries in the first place. The beautiful thing about boundaries, or the not so beautiful thing, is that every single guy has different boundaries, right? Some men, they allow certain behaviors in their life. Some men, they don't. You have to know what works for you. And a lot of guys, they get conflicted. They think to themselves, well, in this situation, yeah, like I know that I don't want her to, maybe a very common situation is the wife says, okay, you're going to move out of the house now, or you're going to move down to the couch, or whatever the case may be. For some men, that's not a big deal. You know what? I've been a jerk. I've been an a-hole. I've been all these things. I'm going to totally do this. And I'm okay. I'm accepting of that, right? Other guys are like, no, I don't want to move out of this house. I'm going to let her move out and that's fine. She can move out all she wants. I'm not going to force her to stay in, but I'm not going anywhere. And the thing is that you have to look inside yourself to know what feels right. And I know there can be a lot of confusion about the right things to do, right? You've never been in a situation before with her probably where you're at in the marriage. And this is where our marriage evaluators actually come in. We've talked to thousands of men at this point. And so I know your situation is unique, but we've seen so many patterns. We know exactly what to do and what not to do in every situation to take the right action, to not make mistakes. So if you want help with that, click the link down below, fill out the application, and get a call with our team. The fourth habit is radical responsibility. Now we have this analogy that we use in the program, which is that you can only control your side of the street, okay? And the concept of the control comes up a lot in these situations with marriages, of how much control you actually have over her. And we all know that you only have control fully over yourself, but you do have some influence over her. But how much? Now, before we address that, I do want to say that what a lot of guys do is that victim comes up so subtly. And I get it, like when things happen to you, it feels better to the ego to say, this wasn't because of me. I don't have to change, because change to the ego is death. Change is death. The fear of the unknown, of becoming someone new, it's scary. It's killing off who you are. But the thing is that if you stay the same, you're going to get the same results in life. If you were the same man, even if she came back to you, the same pattern would repeat. And so how do you combat this? You combat it through radical responsibility, right? Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to what you can have control over, free will or not, I'm not going to get into a philosophical debate with you. But our perspective here that has led to the most success in marriages, and if that's what you want, you need to listen to me, which is everything that happens in your life is because of you. Everything that happens in your life is because of you, okay? You have control over your reactions to all of it. I was talking to our main marriage evaluator today about this, and he was telling me how he'll tell a guy on a call, right? He'll say, so-and-so, John, when you come home from work and you're stressed out, and you come in and you're huffing and puffing, you throw your phone down, and you're just, right? And then she kind of responds, she'll respond to that, of course. But what if you came home and before you stepped into the door, you decompressed, you got happy, and you thought in your mind, I am grateful to come home to my wife. I know marriage isn't the best right now, but I'm grateful to come home to my kids and my wife, and I'm gonna be happy and smiling. When you walk in that way versus huffing and puffing from a stressful day, do you think she's gonna have any difference in response to you? Absolutely, right? And so when you take this idea that you are responsible for every little thing in your life, especially her reactions to you, that makes you feel powerful. It hurts at first, but the long term, the delayed gratification on that is becoming the man that gets what he wants long term, okay? And the thing is, with all success in your life, you look back at this pattern, the same thing applies to other domains of your life, with your career, right? With a good fitness, if you are in shape, right? You're choosing not to eat that immediate tasty food and choosing to eat healthier options. You're going to the gym, putting yourself through pain to look good and feel good, right? It's the same thing with your wife. Okay, I actually want to end with a bonus for the people who stick around to the very end. I usually do an Easter egg, but I'll tell you right now, here's a bonus. There's a fifth concept, a fifth thing that I've been playing with in terms of what a masculine habit is that can help melt her into her feminine state, which is going into your pain and hers. Look, it is a natural and normal response that when you feel pain, you're going to reject it. And I don't know if you knew this, but the thalamus is where it registers pain, and emotional pain and physical pain get registered in the same part of the brain. So when you're hurting emotionally, you're literally freaking physically hurting. So you're going to want to either do three things with that. You're going to either try to hurt her back, right? You're going to try to fix her problems, right? So you're going to either amplify and hurt her back, you're going to fix the problems, or you're going to shut down and run away. All men, it's one of those three responses. What I believe a healthy masculine man does is that he allows himself to feel the pain. He doesn't suffer in it, but he doesn't escape it, right? He doesn't run away, he doesn't lean into it, he just allows it to, like water washing over him. There's a wellness bar nearby, and then you go into the cold tank, not the water, but like with the freezing air, it's like below 132 degrees. When you're in there and you're feeling that pain, your body's screaming at you to get out, right? If you're in your mind, you're like, oh, I don't want this, I need to run, and need to get out, you increase the pain, right? And I can't yell at I can't do anything about the actual cold, I can't fight it, right? But the point is that by sitting there relaxing into it, it's not as bad, right? And whenever she does things to hurt you, and she is saying things to jab at you and hurt your ego, you can put your boundaries up and express how that bothered you and say how it made you feel. But don't fight it. Don't run away, okay? And trying to fix her problems or fighting her back or retreating, it only makes things worse. And I do believe that once you have the capability to sit with her negative emotions and not be reactive to them, that is the number one skill to help her feel safe around you, okay? Here's that video on boundaries I was talking about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.